Chick-fil-A, there's a reason their chicken is so good. Is because they started with the product and they let the value come. And I just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah.
And we as consumers, right, have that power. That's the whole gist of the first opening inquiries.
Dark Ages Europe, from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance era, that's where the social... Actually, no. As long as civilization has existed, the social contract has existed.
Do you think that we could create an applicable business model based on whatever company you were talking about? And then there's other examples like Costco to apply and say, okay...
Every single problem that exists is somebody's problem, therefore deserves a solution.
Because it will eventually becomes your problem. If you live in a household.
Even that, but
like if the planet dies, it's your problem.
Value is ever growing. Value is exponential. It is infinite. Worth is the ability to complete a job. Well, the problem is that it's marginal. It's ever decreasing. Just because something is 10 times more expensive doesn't mean it does its job 10 times better.
Welcome to the A&B Mastering the Minds podcast. I'm Bradley Moore, and I'm here today with a special anonymous economics guest. We're going to talk about money today. We're going to talk about money and economics. Now, my guest today is someone I had a academic class with, so he is verified and credentialed to be at least somewhat coherent in his ideas, but he wants to remain anonymous, which we'll respect that, right? Because we're just interested in his ideas. His face is beautiful, but we'll leave that for his lovers, right? His name is Jacob S. Xenofighter, for all those interested. Hopefully that will work. Jacob, you can introduce yourself and just don't say your last name, obviously, because I just kept you anonymous.
Well,
don't dox yourself, bro. Don't dox
obviously
yourself.
Not, but I'm already cringing,
I cringed the first 5 episodes.
Don't you only have 5 episodes?
now you're getting it. Jacob, tell me, okay, let's just break off the ice and we'll just let you talk. On this podcast, basically, we believe that your purposeful and prosperous life is being stolen from you by your need for comfort, right? I say this every beginning of every podcast so far. It's one of these activities like, hey man, you want to go get a pizza and beer, or you want to go to the gym and then read a book, right? So it's about putting entertainment before education. And on this channel, hopefully the goal is to put education before entertainment, at least for 15 to 30 minutes a day, and we'll give you some tools to maybe make your life a little bit more suffering resilient, I should say. Maybe less suffering is a good way to say it. And today we're going to talk about money and economics. I talked to Jacob, and I think he's got some good ideas that would be wealthy and healthy for the viewers. And with that, I'm just going to ask you, Jacob, to explain to me in your ideal world, what's the definition of economics and what is its role in everyone's lives in the world? What's its dynamic role between both? First, give me a definition. So,
crap! I would have to start with the history of currency to be able to explain that a little bit better. I can do this really quickly. So the history of currency originates with, bartering. And the problem is that everything at the time has different values to different people. When you have a lot of something, it's worth less, but compared to someone that has nothing, it worth a lot more. So, for example, how many bear skins is equal to a boat? How many apples do I need to give you to make my house? Stuff like that. And currency essentially it arose out of necessity.
True.
And currency is like a container that holds water. That water is value. It allows you to not only transfer water from one person to another, or transfer value from one person to another, it allows you to contain it, to store it for later use. For example, say a bear skin or the bear meat, that's going to quickly deteriorate and rot unless if it's been smoked or treated. The apples, you probably only have a few days before all of those rot, and all that value is just deleted. And that's kind of the history of currencies, not only to transfer value from one person to another, but also allow you to store value.
I see.
So
that's like a macro. That's what builds up to what is economics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I support you can support multiple schools of economics because, it's like different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Every perspective has pros and cons, but so you have to take multiple perspectives to truly understand something. Um, so my ideal form of economics is based on kind of like altruism
Yeah, it's
because
a good one.
economics is the idea that a producer produces something, a consumer consumes what is produced. And, you know, trade or market or economy is the transfer from produce from the producer to the consumer.
Yeah.
So if you have no consumers, you have no people, you don't have anyone to consume the products that you're making. So that's why it's kind of, I'm more agreeing with the more general idea of humanistic qualities or altruism.
Yeah.
Because the more people that are alive, the better an economy becomes, the better the standard of living becomes. The more it stagnates, however, that is when you get the economy begins to lock up. That's when the standard of living begins to decrease. And that is when more and more exploitation occurs because, you know, it's the idea of market and market share. If you are a company and you sell products to 100 people, but that population never changes, but you want to continue to increase your profit, the only way to do that is either decreasing your cost or increasing your revenue. So you can either lower the quality of your product
Mm-hmm.
to get more money, or you can take more money from the people you're giving the product to, which creates a huge amount of issues. Um,
Before we
so
move
I,
on, let's label. I like what you said there. Is you can either detract value from the product to increase your ability to profit, or you can add value to the product and increase your chances of profiting based on the market's decisions. I think one of those is a negative overall detractor to our society, and one of those is a positive, right? And I think we could both,
yeah,
if you would agree, that if you're not
yeah,
like Chick-fil-A, there's a reason their chicken is so good is because they started with the product and they let the value come. And I just wanted to make that distinction.
yeah,
And we as consumers, right, have that power. That's the whole kind of the whole gist of the first opening inquiries. I wanted to ask you this, and then you can continue. Basically, do you think it's our kind of on us as consumers to almost police as much as we can in terms of with our buying choice so that would be our role in economics and what it like the role it plays in our lives.
yeah. Um, so one, your voice and your voice don't really matter to companies. Any
Mm-hmm.
form of publicity to a company is a good thing because it gets people talking about it. The more they talk about it, the more they see the company, and the easier it is for them to market.
Sure.
So when you review something, like leave a comment, leave a star review, etc., you're not doing that for the company. You're doing that for other consumers, other people that
Right.
may buy that product. So if it helps you out, leave a good review that somebody else can read it and understand, this could be right for them. But all that matters is what you vote with your wallet. Is that you vote with your money. And as long as you give your money to a company, they will continue to do
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want. And this goes into the discussion of worth versus value, right?
Do you think it's wise to exchange our? Because I kind of agree with you. Where I think, moreover, your financial vote comes from what you spend. I think that's a good representation. Do you think that that's almost kind of a finger trap where we're almost giving more power? I guess you know what I mean. It's kind of almost. I guess what I'm saying is like individual responsibility. Like back in the day, like a public servant didn't get paid. You just were the governor for a few years, or I don't know if it was at the governor level, governor level, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. Do you think it's wise that we put so much weight onto our dollar, given that it's so easy to manipulate in terms of the market and marketing and advertisement and all that?
Well, that's the problem. That you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm. You do have
You
a
you
choice.
don't.
It's just really hard, and people
No, here's the
people
problem.
can't
You
afford it.
don't choose to put the weight on the dollar. E- Everyone together,
Mm-hmm.
collectively as a
True.
society, does that. And the people that want that dollar are the one that put the weight on it. So it's in a really healthy economy, everything will have a choice. You will have the ability to choose more than, say, like three things. Because each of those, say, three companies
See.
offers a different niche. So, let's say um, low quality, super cheap, medium quality, average price, high quality, like higher price. Company A, B, and C. Well, in a healthy market, you would be able to choose with your money which one you want. Do you want a one-time job? Say you're going to use a hammer for like 20 minutes, maybe once a month, then you would go with company A because they're going to offer it the cheapest and you're going to use the least amount. This is where worth comes in. Worth is
Mm-hmm.
derived from ability, the ability to complete a job that you weren't able to. While company C, which offers a really high value product for a high price, you would want to pursue that only if you use it constantly. So, if you are a craftsman or a carpenter and you spend 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day hammering stuff, you're going to need a higher quality tool because of how much crap you're going to put it through.
That's
And
a good point.
this continues into the discussion of worth versus value. Something that is valuable may not have a worth, and something that is extremely worth it may not have a value. For example, something that I found that's very easy to think about is a refrigerator, right? $100 refrigerator, $1,000 refrigerator. Does the $1,000 refrigerator refrigerate 10 times better than the $100 one? No. Does a car that has 100 horsepower do 10 times worse a job than a car that has 10 or 1,000 horsepower? No. It's about its ability to complete its job in a expected, reliable manner. And that's one of the bigger problems with America's economy nowadays is that it's so disproportionate. It has become insane. You see, value is ever increasing because the when a lot of people talk about supply and demand, um, supply and demand is supposed to be a very natural, organic flow. And just like company A, B, and C, company A, huge supply, huge demand. Company B, average supply, average demand. Company C, the one that's the most expensive and highest quality, is lowest supply, lowest demand. Because each one is supposed to conform to people's lifestyle, conform to the averages. That's where the idea of the consumer is always right comes from. If you are offering blue pants and you don't have any customers and there's another shop that offers orange pants and they are filled to the brim every day, you should start selling orange pants because that's what the consumer wants. Um,
Sure.
I
Let's
mean, I can continue.
let's lead it to the middle then, because I want to ask you. I think we're hitting this point pretty. I think we're at the point where we can leap into taxes. Let's talk about taxes in terms of. I want to talk about. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds in terms of like should the rich pay more taxes. Let's talk like generally like in an ideology perspective. Like if I was to ask someone on the street when it comes to taxes, what do you think you should pay? If that person was completely logical and they thought through, let's say 20% of the data available, and I gave them a general idea of how taxes work. You see what I'm saying? And they're maybe 30 years old and they've paid their share of taxes, so now they understand this is how much everyone gets taxed. At that point, what do you think? Should we pay more? Should we pay more taxes as citizens who know? Like, so for instance, if you're a citizen and you know I'm saving $40,000 a year just because I'm that good with my money. Do you think that there's an individual like not I don't want to say like calling or anything like that, but just kind of like a it's your
Um,
job. I think there was a video I watched last night. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but there's an Indian word where they say it. It just means community service, basically. Like your like your do your part is what it means. But How far does that go? And
Yeah,
then before I let
that's
you have it, is it our job to steward that with our vote, with our dollar vote?
so that comes from the social contract. In Dark Ages Europe, from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance era, this that's where the social actually no. As long as civilization has existed, the social contract has existed, which is the idea that even mathematically proven, even mathematically speaking, people working together will always have a better outcome than everyone out for themselves. So because everyone benefits from society, everyone needs to contribute to society. And it's my belief that taxes should reflect the ability to thrive, the ability to advance. It shouldn't be some flat number, and it should instead be designed to allow you to survive and then a little bit after that. So if someone's impoverished who can't even meet their basic needs, taxing them is not going to help them. This goes to the original discussion. You know, people are the economy. People are the fundamental roots of the economy. And if everybody is suffering, then there is no economy. This is why I think that progressive tax is the best outcome. Not that you get so that it's specifically designed to allow you to always thrive, to always give you that room to move forward. Because that, in reality, is the definition of freedom, is the ability to decide your own fate. So do you want to stay where you are? Then you can do that. Do you want to go down the economic ladder, lead a minimalistic lifestyle so that you can pursue passions that may not generate value, but are valuable to you, or my bad, may not generate worth, but are very valuable to you, like reading, painting, etc. Do you believe that the best way to support your family is to constantly invest in yourself, to constantly improve yourself? So, education, financial investment, business ownership, that means you're going up the ladder because
Yeah.
you believe that stability and you believe that affluence is what you wish to provide your family. And that's where progressive tax comes in, you know? So, progressive tax is literally just you make up to X amount of money, you're being taxed this amount. Okay? That's it. Once you make the amount that you make or the money that you make from X to Y, however, slightly changes. So say the first $20,000 you only pay 200, so 1%. The next $20,000 you make after that, you instead pay $400, so 2%. The next $20,000 after that, you now pay $600, so 3%. You know, you're not.
Yeah.
That's what a progressive tax is supposed to be, and you just don't see that today. A lot of
What
people.
do you think about a ceiling on that? Like, do you think at some point
Okay, so
it's hard
this.
to do that one because then
Oh
then you
yeah.
take away motivation to actually make more money. But I think what I want to point to is on a cultural level, if we can get people to value community more and our neighbor more, or in our cousin and our
Mhm.
brother, the people who don't want to necessarily build the company but want to work for do you think, like, for instance, Costco, we just did a podcast last night, and Costco pays like $20 an hour. They offer
Mhm.
90% of their employees health care, and there was another statistic. It was a TED talk, a guy from, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was from Harvard Business School, and he was talking about from 19, I think it was 90 to 2020. But we were listening to that podcast and or that TED talk, and he basically said about it was about a 20-year span, but companies who were employee like not satisfaction based, but really cared about their employee. For instance, Costco did like 2 to 3% annually a year for like 20 years for that. That was just his data set. Who knows if they're continuing that or not? But I would argue that after 20 years, it's probably. I mean, I know one thing, for instance, and then I'll let you take from there. Is at UPS when I had great insurance, and that was part of the reasons I didn't mind going to work because I paid like $30 a month, and it was just great. It was great insurance, like $5 copay. I felt like I never paid any medical bills. So on that perspective, do you think do we think we balance? How do you balance that as a consumer? Okay, I just made $1 billion. How do I reinvest into the company to keep competitors? Because I think
So,
that's where the problem gets, right? It's if the other cutthroat guy will say screw the customers and my employees and squeeze that dollar out of you. But do you think that's a result of us moving our economy to different countries? Moving the heart of our
um,
economy to different countries, so that way it's not your cousin and your brother and you know what I mean, who's affected by it. That's a good point to make. You see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna try and break that up into three responses real quickly. So, capitalism is based on classical school of economic thought, which is derived from Adam Smith and his writings. He's not like the founder of it, but he has a significant influence in it. And it's called the labor theory of value. So everything has a baseline intrinsic worth. And up from the Renaissance up until when he released his papers and continued to release books on it, um, it was thought that something is only worth as much as their individual components or as much as it is worth in gold. I could go into the problems with mercantilism and all that later, but don't have time right now. Um, so the idea is that say you have a lump of just iron and a lump of wood. Well, can you hammer things with this lump of metal and lump of wood? Not very well. Can you pry up nails from wood with this lump of metal and lump of wood? Not very well. Well, the labor theory is the idea that somebody had to spend time, they had to spend effort to create and refine this lump of iron and this lump of wood into a hammer. And this is where the very first idea of value being different from
I
worth
see.
begins to arrive. So essentially, you have the intrinsic worth of the innate materials plus the labor hours. That's labor theory. Um, well, it has been found that altruism mathematically is always best. There have been studies of companies that I don't remember the exact name of the country or the company. And again, I am biased about this type of stuff. Everyone is. But this company went from having a 50 multiplier. So the CEO always made 50 times as much money as its um,
Interesting.
lowest paid worker. Well, one day the CEO and owners decided, screw it. I'm going to help out my workers. So they changed it to 4. However much money the CEO, the minimum paid employee get is a fourth of that. And they had their productivity increased by about 5 times.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
Like
it just depends
company
on how
wide,
much you want to consume. As the I think that maybe is that the argument we can go from there. How much do you need to consume as a business owner versus
yes.
like, hey guys, if we spend $20,000 of our 90,000 because you're already making 20,000 over what your job would get paid in another company. If we spend half of that back into the company, I'll be
Mhm.
able to pay you $5,000 extra next year, and I'll make 20,000, but I'll reinvest. You know what I mean? You think
And
that's a good
the
business
story
strategy, right?
the story is obviously going to sound anecdotal, but this CEO took a risk, obviously, because very few companies ever do this, and they started having record profits, they started having record revenue, their reviews as well as advertisement was through the roof. Everyone wanted what they were producing simply because of how much better the workers felt that the company cared for them. That's where the motivation comes in that you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. Motivation is completely about perception. As long as you feel that you are creating value with your effort, you will feel as if you have changed your world. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs talked about,
Love that guy.
talked about stuff like this. Yeah. He talked about how you can love your job if you realize what your job accomplishes.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how, the opposite of this is how in prisoner of war camps, where people weren't tortured in them, but they were given a lot of jobs that were futile,
Mm-hmm.
where have a bunch of workers move thousands of pounds of rocks from one pile to another every day for months, and their lifespan just dramatically short. that like you would have people that could survive in these conditions go from survival to dying in a few
Yeah.
months.
Because
And
psychologically, that's hard to do.
because you weren't accomplishing anything,
Yeah.
and you knew it, and it
Which
was
is,
designed to do
that's
it.
literally the typical life that, like, when I come to somebody, like, hey, what's your goals? It's like, I'm moving rocks to the other side of my room today, and tomorrow I'll move them back to where they were. And then I'll
Yeah.
complain about the fact that that's what's happening. And I'm just like,
So
all right.
this goes in this goes into the idea that A, the economy is based on how healthy the individual consumers are. B, motivation is tied to the amount of value you create from your job. And C, all of these things tied together that yes, there should really be a flat cap
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point, because that flat cap of like the amount of money or wealth that you can produce, which it's been mathematically proven is about 65%. It's called the Laffer curve. We were already discussing it, but about 65% is the nominal
Mm-hmm.
amount of taxation, not including all the land taxes, wealth taxes, sales tax, all that.
Mm.
And you can only produce as much money as the weakest link. The
The Lincoln's
Yeah, stop it.
Lincoln's Memorial Center.
Yes, word is hard. I think in pictures, not words, and it's hard to translate. So there should obviously be a cap eventually of like that 70, maybe even 80%, because I think at one point it was like 90% income tax. Well, this would allow motivation. That's what the progressive tax is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Because once you
Where,
get a taste of $1 million, it doesn't feel so bad to give half of it away, especially if you
I mean,
are
yeah,
active in the economy and you vote and you talk to the people who are legislating. I think that's where people lose motivation. And then I'm going to
because
wrap
like
this into a conclusion and ask you what you think, because I kind of have a decent idea. So you think? Let me ask you this: do you think I lost parts of it? Do you think that the individual, or let me ask you this first before I lose it? If do you think it's a business could theoretically make up in profits for the shareholder what they would technically lose by pay? Because that's the first thing they're going to say is, hey, what about the shareholders? You can't pay them that much money. Your employees on the ground level. Do you think that we could create an applicable business model based on whatever company you were talking about? And then there's other examples like Costco to apply and say, okay, as a government, we'll pass this law. Say we're going to pass this law for say what would this law say for you? Like if you do X, Y, and Z as a business, we will subsidize you because the people agreed because you're paying your workers so well, and that will create for you shareholder profit. That way, if someone really wants to be mega rich, so they can still be mega rich. Because I fully agree that like I don't want to take anyone's money if that's what they really want, because that's just where they're at in life, right? Some people don't necessarily need that motivation, but do you think it's up to the business owners to find and produce management that have that mentality where okay, I don't mind getting paid a little less. That way, you all get paid a little more. When I come into work, you don't look at me like you want to walk out of the door. You know what I
so
mean? So
I
where's
just
the
want to
balance there?
So I just want to point out, some of the richest people in the world, like Melinda and Bill Gates. I don't know if they have the same last name anymore. They got divorced. Uh, Mr. Buffett, etc. All of these people engage in philanthropy because they realize that they have literally so much money
Yeah,
that they can thrive. Well, the problem is they don't make any income. They don't. All of their assets are assets, which is
yep.
wealth.
And then they
And the
say I need
problem
to cash in
is
this and spend. And even though they spend, well,
Well, that's the problem. You
how do
can't
we
cash
feel?
it in.
How do we field
It's
that as a
so
government? Then that's where we need to find out. How do we vote as a legislator and as a voter to say here's the Bill Gates
uh
model. If you can get to this point as a business, we'll subsidize 20% of your costs if you spend 30% on your employees, philanthropy, and investing in other businesses. That way the market share. That's a great fucking idea. Subsidize companies like Walmart for investing in small business. That way Walmart stops shitting on all the companies. And then that's a
uh
real community based law right
okay.
there that
I
really
will
forces Walmart to say, okay, if I'm going to because they pay their workers $9 a fucking hour or some shit. It's like 11 or some crazy amount still. And that's because we want cheap ass lettuce, people. That's because you want cheap lettuce. So if you work at Walmart, go. You know what I mean? And obviously that people see the system is so already in whirlpool mode. It's hard to say it. But we have to bring these things up, right? To legislate them, and my point is we make enough as a collective to where we can spend enough money in America through legislation on these areas to slowly change over time, slowly change from fossil fuel to electric, and keep the wealthy and happy when they're mega boats, and they're basically throwing tantrums because they don't want to lose their lifestyle, which I get that, but also the planet's fucking gonna die, so there's that.
Okay.
Anyways,
speed run or
speed run it.
style.
Speed run it quickly.
Okay, so
no, I'm just kidding. Don't take your time. I want to hear what you have to say.
First of all, you have to think just like the labor theory of value. Value is created whenever something is refined, whenever you create or give something a new use. Capitalism can do that. Capitalism has done it. It's called a circle economy. Essentially, whenever you think of something as waste, that waste is a product to somebody else if you just refine it. For example, food scraps. Go to a restaurant, you eat, not all the plates finished. All that gets put in the dumpster ends up in the landfill, boom, it's done. That's the end of its life. That is the problem. Well, instead, that landfill, if that food was sorted out, that food could be converted into fertilizer.
Right.
Meat has the nitrates, ammonia, all the sugars and stuff create really good fertilizer. Can create amazing nutrient
would
systems.
that be? Do you think it would be equal to like a synthetic? Because that's what they're going to ask. Is it cheap enough to? Can I? Because it'll be cheaper. We have so many fucking landfills.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
It would be a billion times cheaper. This is okay. I'm challenging you. We're going to do another episode. I want you to create a structure. Give me a skeleton on how we could create a nonprofit organization that works with communities and restaurants, and we'll try to get some subsidy from the government. I'll fucking talk to the government. I'm sorry, excuse my language. I'll talk to Sherrod Brown myself because I emailed him the other day and we had a little brief discussion. I'm sure it wasn't him. But you get my point. Commit to it. Say yes. Say it.
No.
Say
I refuse.
Say it.
I need more coffee to commit.
Xeno Fighter. Say it.
In my house.
All right.
To commit.
You've been called to action, Jacob. If you're interested
already
in that,
called me to action. You can't force my enlistment to increase.
It's not me now. There's 100 views on my channel. There's 100 people relying on you. They want to know, how do we recycle this shit? Actually, this is perfect. I just was on LinkedIn yesterday, and do you know the river cleaner? I can't remember this gentleman's name. He was on the Joe Rogan show, and then I'll let you summarize whatever, and we can end on this. But basically, he created a machine, and it scoops up trash from the river, dumps it in a tub. The boat lands. They switch. You know what is his name?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know his name? I don't know his name, but some guy commented on a gentleman posted this in a company that was basically helping to try to market it. And someone was like, yeah, but what do we do with all the trash after? And I was just like, God, I have never commented on social media. I refuse to fall into that trap. Because there's no action that comes from it. That's why it's a complete waste of energy. And this guy was like, and he's like a world trade business, you know what I mean? Posturing as this like leader, and he's a world trade logistics. And he's like, what are we going to do with all the trash after? He was like, great. And what do we do with? And I was like, and I commented, and I was like, I suggest, why don't you spend 10 years of your life developing a way to deal with that, like this gentleman did to deal with this problem? And so I was like, and I was kind to him. I was like, look, dude, we need leaders in this world. Like, I believe in you. You can do it. And he texted back. See, this is why I don't social media. He commented back.
Straight up DM.
he texted back on the LinkedIn site comment, whatever. He recommented, and he said, it would take 2 years to understand this. It would take 2 of your lifetimes for you to understand this problem, I think. And I was like, okay. And I did the math. I was like, okay, so take 2 lifetimes. That's 80 years times 2. That's 160 years. Divide that by, I think I did like a 50-man company, and it was like 3.2 years. I was like, okay, Milan. His name's Milan. It's like, Milan. In 3.2 years, we could understand the problem. In roughly 5, we could probably deal with it. Now, here's the action step. Do you want to create a nonprofit organization with me? Get that done? Here's, your move. That's what I said. And of course, the guy never messaged back. I'm actually going to reply to it again because it's just like, no, you don't get to just say things anymore. This is what's killing our.
Hey,
you know what I mean? It's what's killing you. You have to have action behind it.
Okay, need to go even faster. It appears, and every single problem that exists is somebody's problem, therefore deserves a solution.
Because it will
Because
eventually
obviously,
becomes your problem. If you
not
live
well,
in a
not even
household,
that, but
like if the planet
everyone.
dies, it's your problem. I know that's a bit
Well, yeah,
dramatic,
okay,
but
yes, those problems can evolve
and it's
really
going to be
quickly.
our kids' problems, right? That's the real
Second,
thing I'm saying.
we have all the information and technology right now to
Yep.
solve every single problem.
Yes.
The only issue is that it's not corruption and it's not maliciousness. It is just straight ineptitude.
Yep. We don't find it valuable. We find it more valuable to go home and watch TV because that's what culture tells us. You earned this right. You worked 40
Even
hours a
then,
week. You did your
that's all
job.
about perspective. That's all perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
so
if that's what you do, that's what you
going
do. I'm
back
not judging
into
people for that, by the way.
oh no, it's fine. Going back into what I was talking about, classical economics, right? Everything has an intrinsic worth. Well, just like that waste that's ending up into the landfill, there are two different types of items in an economy: a good and a bad. Goods transfer value to you. Bads transfer value away from you. That waste is a bad.
Yeah.
That waste had to be paid to be disposed of. That waste has
or it will have to be
zero
pulled out of
value.
the river, right, or the ocean eventually, which is
Yes,
going to
it
cost a
has-
lot more money than if we just manufactured a product
So-
that was sustainable.
Obviously, that zero value item that still has its worth is going to be cheaper than the synthetic fertilizers. You just need to treat it. So you take those food scraps, you take that waste, you can convert it in compost to fertilizer. That fertilizer can then be used to grow new crops. Those crops end up at food produce distribution centers. Those distribution centers send it to the restaurant. The restaurant sends it back to the treatment facility, turned into fertilizer. This is a circular economy.
So you're losing 3% of the product value instead of 100% every time you make it.
Yes.
And that way we can scale down the manufacturing industries to be sustainable and still make mega profit. You just have to invest in the right systems first. The value is generational at that point. That you're bringing value to people that aren't even created. Or I should say created.
So value
people that are born
can only be created as long as an economy grows. If an economy stagnates or shrinks, value is destroyed.
Do you think that it has to be just the base growth, like just population growth, or can it be like?
Oh no!
Like you say, can it
standard of living?
Economic
it can be population
grow in terms of
growth.
value? Like we're talking about, like the product is more valuable because it's going to last longer. It's going to be more sustainable, which gives my family longer to live, which gives them more time to figure out how to get off the planet, which gives them more time to think about how to deal with the sustainability issues. You can think
about it into 3 separate categories: value density. So the more somebody invests in themselves, the more they invest in their education, the more they invest in things that every single time they apply it to a problem creates more value. Second, population growth. The more a population grows, obviously, the more that people are able to consume. This doesn't need to be positive, but since the foundation of currency, that is the only thing that has mattered to the people in power, is how many babies can I get you to have? That's it. And the problem is that is such a draconic, ancient way of thinking. It has spoiled and corrupted so many initiatives. And the last way that you can think about it is value is created from something's worth simply by being transferred from one person to another. And because money is constantly being printed, the value can remain the same, even though the Fed can print like $1 trillion. The value of your money can stay the same with special circumstance. That means the economy is growing without the population growing, without the value density growing, etc.
I see what you're saying. So if the world economy has a sustainable number, you can have 3 kids in a family because likely the education has gone up so much that there'll be 3 women who don't want to live that lifestyle, and therefore they won't have children. Therefore, your standard can go up. You can eat more of the pie, and that way China can stop trying to take everything over in the world. Listen, just have less children.
That's actually the thing. When people think of population replacement, the 2 parents to 2 kids, technically speaking, I think it's like 2.5 deaths per birth. So you could probably have anywhere from 2 to 3 kids, and you'll probably equate.
Point being, you can do what you want in life. Like, I think the main detractor, and I will end with this, is people think that they're going to lose by giving, right? When it's actually the complete opposite. If you
Yeah,
give
you're
up enough,
creating
you create a
value.
vacuum of value in your own life, right? Like by you giving me your time, we've created a vacuum in our own lives in terms of like entertainment. But say in 10 years, someone comes to us and say, "Hey, this talk really," you know what I mean? I mean, obviously that's a shot in the dark, but someone comes and says, "Here's $10,000. I became a millionaire, and this was the podcast that did it." Right? That's not
Oh
why we
God.
do this stuff, but
I mean, I could use a
to,
little money. I could use a
the
little
point
money.
is that person had enough. We had enough to pour into someone else, so that person became able to pour into someone else. That $10,000 given to someone who's pouring into someone is likely going to get poured back into someone, right? So that's why I think my closing comment will be: we have to find a way to, like we talked about at the beginning, create a positive economic. I can't remember what we call it, but we have a positive economic modality and a negative economic modality, and one is which the value of the product comes first, which leads to the value of the company, and the value of the company comes first, which leads to the value of the product.
I mean, like everything that we have discussed, I can probably expand upon later, because there's a lot of stuff that
Yeah,
we
that was
simply have to
dense.
jump over,
We're gonna have
because
to do another one.
we only had like 40 minutes,
Yep.
and I can probably
I know, I'm
expand every
salty. I wanted
single
to do
point
more,
into
but
an
I can't.
hour,
We could do
hour and a
another
half.
podcast. Okay, commit right now. This will be the A&B
No,
Masterminds. We need you here next Saturday.
no, pay me,
Uh,
pay me.
buy you a league skin and
God
for
no.
Christmas.
No,
a
I
little
do
double
not vote
TiVo.
with your wallet. Do not give Riot the
No.
money by voting with your wallet.
Okay, this has been A&B
Hold on,
Masters of
I'm just gonna
Minds.
do a quick rundown
Yeah, give it to
of
me.
all the points we covered. Um, Crap. So one, value and worth are not. Hold on, shut up. Stop it. Do not laugh. That embarrasses me. Okay, so there's a difference between value and worth. Value is ever growing.
Mhm.
Value is exponential. It is infinite.
I see.
Worth is the ability to complete a job. Well, the problem is that it's marginal. It's ever decreasing. Just because something is 10 times more
Hmm.
expensive doesn't mean it does its job 10 times better. Value is created
Like a
when
beautiful
people
piece of art. Can look
yes,
like a painting that my nephew did, and I would get no joy out of it. Whereas someone aesthetically knew the life of the I see what you're saying. Life of the artist.
or it could simply be that your nephew just painted, a picture of his happiness of sharing time with you, and that is worth,
Yeah,
it's
true.
not worth anything still, but now it's valuable.
Yeah.
Um, then you've got the idea that every time that you take something and refine it, you're adding value to its worth. The worth is permanent. It will never
Yeah.
be destroyed, but it will always be capable of generating new value later. That's circle economy. Screw supply side economics. Stop giving corporations money. That's just something to look up is supply side economics and trickle down economics. Those are two examples of when you give a corporation money that is already operating at full capacity, then they will just take the money. That's what happened in 2017. That's why, they were given several $1 trillion in tax cuts and there was no wage increase. There was no price decrease. It's because they were already operating at max capacity. That's why corporations and factories move to other countries. It's so that they can have a bigger job, they can have a bigger market to access.
Yeah.
They can have cheaper costs. They can reduce the cost and the quality to drive up their profits because they know you will vote with your wallet. It doesn't matter how much you scream and kick. It doesn't matter how much you try to shout on internet forums, unless if you protest, unless if you strike, unless if you vote with your wallet. Those are the only ways to show that you do and do not support something. And lastly, you do not need consumerism and capitalism to be the same thing. Capitalism can exist and has existed without consumerism. We are just at the point where we now put so much value into convenience, the worth
Yep.
is
I agree.
like, for example, Wendy's. They have like a 5 times profit margin on their junior Frosties. So that means that for every dollar you spend, right, you're only getting 20 cents worth of product. 80 of that cents is the convenience of the frosted treat because they handed it to you You just gave them $80 when you could
That's
have
a
made that
good.
crap it yourself.
We should do an episode on that convenience. I'm actually gonna write this down. We're gonna do an
Yes,
episode on convenience.
so yeah, that's actually
Because I
anti-capitalism.
actually think convenience is the like trick hat that we're pulling on ourselves. It's actually murdering our own
Yeah.
economy because
Um.
convenience
So
has no there's not a
we're
lot
we're
of value in
currently
it. Like the
we are
convenience to go from
currently
I don't know. That's another episode.
we are currently in a economy that is corporatist, not capitalist. Corporatist is a economy that values corporations. Capitalism is an economy that values income. It values money. We have reached the point where
Money.
yes, it does not matter how much money you have. The only thing that matters in this economy is how much confidence as a company you have. Because you have to think, most companies aren't run on money anymore. They're run on debt, credit. They're
Yeah.
run on all the things that are continuously being restricted to poor people so that they can't make it, because if they have access to that they suddenly can benefit themselves. That creates competition. I am ranting. I really need to stop ranting.
It's worth it. It's worth it. Keeps the people going. Was it gets the people
Ah,
going? But unfortunately, I have to now go because I have a couple other appointments this evening to make.
all right, good luck.
Jacob, it was a pleasure to have you on, my friend. We'll definitely do this again. Well, I think convenience and consumerism is a really good topic. We need to.
Convenience,
We could find a balance.
consumerism.
We could find a balance in there that would definitely help someone in their life, I think. But thank you for coming, Jacob S. Xenofighter. We'll talk again, I'm sure. I think you enjoyed this as much as I did. And for everyone watching, please, if you enjoyed it, subscribe and like. And if you didn't enjoy it, please smash the dislike button. Yes, if you didn't enjoy it, smash it. Because I believe in the freedom of speech. And I believe that your decisions should be shown in this podcast. Like, just like we were talking about. If there's no value in this, then hit the dislike. Leave it at a minute. You know what I mean? Get out of here. But this has been A&B, Mastering the Minds. And I appreciate Mr. Xenofighter. And have a good night, everyone.
All right, best of luck.